Want to know what you'll get in Dynasty Fantasy Football for the values of top wide receivers Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabers, and Rome Odunze? We break down their scouting reports in the 2024 NFL Draft, only on Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We're part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your fantasy football team every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy betting. Now, free agency to draft for sportingnews.com. My co-host, Michelle Madzuk of NFL.com, is off this week. She'll be back next week as I take next week off for spring break. So catching up on the top prospects here on the 2024 NFL Draft. We just went through my mock draft in three parts there for you to think about what teams are thinking on the clock. Now we're going to take a deeper dive into the top three wide receivers in the class. Marvin Harrison Jr., the standout, top tier by himself, receiver out of Ohio State. We'll break him down first. Then we'll look at the guys right behind him in this class, Malik Nabers out of LSU and Rome Odunze out of Washington, both also potential top 10 picks. So we'll explore what their value might hold, immediate impact as rookies, what their long-term outlook is, and look at the landing spots and where they might be playing in the NFL next season as rookies. Before we do that, I got to tell you that this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Yeah, you've been probably hearing about Marvin Harrison Jr. since early in the 2022 college season. He was just dominant, and he continues to dominate. And we know when you have Marvin Harrison as your name, you're going to have good genes. And those genes have maybe exploded because I think you look at Marvin Harrison Sr., he was more of a technical route runner, kind of smaller, just got the job done. He's the kind of receiver that was known for non-diva attitude, throwing the ball back to the official after scoring from a Peyton Manning touchdown pass most times, right, in his career. So now Harrison has a son who's maybe headed to a bigger career than him. Yeah, it's a lofty expectation. You have a Hall of Famer for dad, but his skill set is incredible. Marvin Harrison Jr., 6'3", 202 pounds. He's so confident in his dominant abilities that he's avoided working out at the combine. He didn't do anything at his pro day. He doesn't need to. He stood out all over the field for the Buckeyes. He actually starred. He's a sneaky star of C.J. Stroud's pro day. So C.J. Stroud owes him a little bit for making him look so good there in college and then his pro day, leading to a very good season with the Texans, making a nice transition there. But Harrison is better than Nico Collins. He's better than Tank Dell. He's better than most teams' number one wide receivers right now. That's how good he is. So the hype is real on Marvin Harrison. And look, if you're that good, you wouldn't want to go out there and risk injury in a workout. Why would you want to do that? We've seen stock of receivers kind of go down based on that. He is a classic number one receiver, 6'3", 202. You love that. The physical upside is incredible. You watch any Ohio State game, and this is a program, keep in mind, that's produced great receivers of late. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith, and Najigba. These are all guys that were with Harrison. And this guy has looked better than the rest, and he's had some transition at quarterback. We know that, right? I mean, things have been a little bit different there, but he continues to dominate and be an absolute force here all over the field. He just is unstoppable. He can score in the red zone and use his body well there. He can stretch the field. He's the guy they look to all over the field in a pinch to come through. So he's the number one through and through. He's the go-to guy. He's much like Jamar Chase, where we felt really good about Jamar Chase. He had those drop issues, right? Everyone was concerned that he had some drop issues. And then Who cares? He went to the Bengals and landed with Joe Burrow, and he's awesome. And he reunited. And Justin Jefferson, oh no, he can't play in the slot. Ugh, we start nitpicking these guys. And now I've heard, is he almost the level of Nabers? Look, Marvin Harrison has just been killing it as the best player in college football. Now, if they actually gave Heisman's away to wide receivers on a regular basis, Marvin Harrison would have been right in the conversation. Now, again, the numbers are there, the production is there, the eye test tells you he's dominant here. The genes are there, the pedigree is there, the coaching is there, everything that you can look at, all the boxes are checked with Marvin Harrison. Now, let's look at what his value is in fantasy. Very aggressive ranking for him in Dynasty Keeper rankings, according to Fantasy Pros. He's number 7. Yeah, he's up there with all those established young studs, including Wilson and Olave. He's higher than Olave, right there with Wilson. You look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had the best season last year, CeeDee Lamb. He's right up there with all these guys as the guy that you want in fantasy football for the long term there. So very excited about what Marvin Harrison can do. Now let's look at where he might land. I think this is a little bit of a anticlimactic thing we'll discuss, but we said that Harrison would go to the Cardinals. Now, look, we know there's top 3 picks tied to a quarterback. We know the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams. We feel pretty certain the Commanders and Patriots are going to get their quarterback first, whether it's Drake May or Jane Daniels. In some order, they're at 2-3. So it really lines up for the Cardinals to get Marvin Harrison. Now, somebody could swoop in there, and we've talked about the Jets maybe doing this, right? We've seen it in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft there at NFL.com with Michelle's colleague that, yeah, there's a potential. The Jets or another team could bang the table and say, we want this game-changing wide receiver. No matter what, it doesn't matter if this wide receiver class is loaded and deep. We want Marvin Harrison Jr. to put on our uniform, help our quarterback, help our other receiver. So, yeah, there's a potential. I think the Commanders and Patriots both would be listening to the offers. Now, you would think, however, that a team trades up to one of those spots, they're going to get a quarterback, but they could be also moving out for Harrison. So now let's just go to Harrison staying on the board for number 4 and the Cardinals. Now, Cardinals have nobody. The targets are vacated here from the key players. Rondale Moore didn't really do much. He was traded to get Desmond Ridder. Marquise Hollywood Brown wasn't re-signed. Michael Wilson is their top receiver. Their best fantasy asset from last year in the passing game was Trey McBride for Kyler Murray. And this is a season where they had a lot of wide receiver uncertainty, and they didn't have a quarterback for much of the year. Kyler Murray had to be fully healthy and get ready to play. Relied on Josh Dobbs. They had a little bit of Clayton Tune in there. Now you get a full season of Kyler Murray. We know what he's done when he's had a clear alpha, DeAndre Hopkins. He's fed that guy and made him look awesome. He misses a Hopkins-like player. So Marvin Harrison Jr., this aggressive number 7 dynasty ranking, yeah, this could be his actual impact ranking here in the short term at wide receiver in drafts and PPR leagues. I think a little bit down from that in non-PPR, but he has wide receiver 1 top 12 potential in any format this season. So that's what you have to treat Marvin Harrison Jr. like, a top wide receiver in fantasy. He's got that much production, and the fit is perfect here because he's going to be the number 1, get all the key volume from an established veteran quarterback and a passing game that is probably going to be limited with assets, right? You're going to have McBride, you're going to have Harrison, maybe a few passes to the running backs, and Wilson being maybe a solid number 2, but no one that's going to be right there as a co-guy, right, with Harrison. So targets are going to be there. The talent is there. What else do you need? Marvin Harrison Jr. is a elite fantasy asset right away when he enters the league, and probably will be that through his prime in his career. So very excited about that. I'm still excited about the other 2 guys, Malik Nabers and Rome Odunze, who come in as potential top 10 picks. We'll break down their scouting reports, see where they're ranked in dynasty and keeper leagues right now according to the consensus, and also give you a scouting report of them in our final 2 segments on the show. Buying tickets has never been easier because we have the Game Time app, and you can also wait till the last minute to get the best deals around you, whether you're going to a sporting event, concert, comedy show. Game Time's got you covered. You can just wait till the last minute and just say, hey, maybe this is a good night for a date. And we got something to do. We're at dinner. Hey, there's this event coming around just the corner, and we can do that here. So, and Game Time is going to make that process so easy for you. You can get last minute tickets with really good deals that you'll see, flash deals and zone deals that will pop up. And you can also get a quick view of your seat. So before you buy, you know exactly what to expect when you arrive, and you get all your prices that show your total up front. So you know you're getting a great deal, and you can check out things in an instant. You can buy tickets with just 2 taps on your phone through the Game Time app. So it doesn't get any better than that to get to the events you want to, even if you wait to the last minute, because Game Time has got you covered for sure. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and use the promo code Locked On. Redeem it. It's spelled LOCKDON for $20 off there at the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, it is time to end the show, and we will do that in a moment. We will break down Malik Nabers, the latest great talent out of LSU. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn on the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in the NFL draft without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Malik Nabers. This has been a good tradition, other than Terrace Marshall so far, of LSU wide receivers really coming through for fantasy, led by Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Now, no one can really have those expectations. Well, Marvin Harrison Jr. can. Malik Nabers is pretty good here in his own right. Not as big, 6'0", straight up, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. Very smooth route runner, good hands, can do things after the catch. So he's kind of guy that you want to get in the open field. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, has more just downfield explosiveness, better size for the red zone. But Malik Nabers can just rack up catches here. He's very sure-handed. You can trust him here. Very good offense. He played with the Heisman winner from this year, Jaden Daniels. He also had a very good receiver next to him, much like Chase and Jefferson did off each other, in Brian Thomas Jr., who we like a lot going later in the draft. And we'll explore his scouting reports as well as the best of the rest wide receivers there in rapid fashion for you on Friday's show. But Nabers could even stand out from what Brian Thomas Jr. did. So Nabers just, again, dynamic all over the field, very solid, can do anything you want. A little bit of Stephon Diggs in him, that kind of alpha that'll command the ball here. So let's look at his ranking. And again, this tells you a little bit how high people are on him. That the consensus ranking on Fantasy Pros here for his value is wide receiver 11. Yeah, in keeper and dynasty leagues. That's how high. So only 4 spots away from Marvin Harrison. And I think we're anticipating a good landing spot for Malik Nabers. And again, I love these receivers who can get open all over the field, can line up in the slot if needed. I think he has a little bit more slot versatility than Harrison, but you don't really care about Harrison because he can dominate on the outside. But I think you'll see him run all kinds of routes. There's a little bit of Chase to him that can do that. Or we see that with the Bengals using Chase and T. Higgins inside at times when they need to kind of scheme them open. I think you can get that with Malik Nabers as well. Now, let's look at the landing spots here. We talked about Arizona being the first landing spot for a wide receiver. Right behind are 2 teams that should be interested. The Chargers, if he goes to the Chargers, is great, right? We have all the vacated targets of Keenan Allen. We know this team is not going to probably throw as much with the Greg Roman offense, so the percentage of targets are going to go down overall versus what they do with carries. But when you look at it, the Chargers need a number 1 receiver. Josh Palmer is not going to cut it. They did use a first rounder, however, on Quentin Johnson, but it was a different group, right? Tom Telesco did that. The previous GM, they didn't have Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. They were doing it for Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley last year. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, it just doesn't carry over when you have a new coaching and personnel regime. So the Chargers could go right back to that well, realizing that this wide receiver class is special, and they could go after Nabers and make him number one. You time with Justin Herbert. That's why you're looking at number 11, folks, potentially. Now, the next landing spot is not as great with the Giants because you have to worry about Daniel Jones, but he would be a dominant alpha. They're cleaning house with all these other guys that they had, Isaiah Hodgins, Sterling Shepard. None of those guys are going to be back here. Darius Slayton, occasional guy that pops in out of necessity, and Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt. One is about quickness, one's about speed. They're not the complete receiver that Nabers is. So he would be the automatic dominant go-to guy for Daniel Jones as well. And the Giants, maybe it's Drew Lock at some point if they struggle. But again, we mentioned the Diggs comparison. We know Brian Dable is the Giants coach. He came from the Bills and Diggs, so that would make a lot of sense there if they went in that direction. And I think that's the most likely ending spot. I think the Chargers could go in a different direction with Brock Bowers or get another player that they think about. But I think the Chargers, Giants, that's what you're looking at. If you go beyond that, the Titans are at number 7. So you got Calvin Ridley in the mix. So you may not be interested in as much in investing with this high a pick. You need offensive line needs. The Falcons, we know, went nuts with their offseason and getting Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod, bringing back Kaderil Hodge. They've got Drake London as their alpha. They've also used 3 consecutive first-round picks on skill players there with their GM, with what they got in Kyle Pitts, London, and Bijan Robinson. So again, I don't see the Falcons or Titans there. The Titans at 7, Falcons at 8, going in that direction. The Bears come up as the next landing spot, and then you have the Jets at 10. So very interesting. You have back-to-back teams there, Chargers, Giants behind the Cardinals looking at the next wide receiver. Then you drop down a little bit. You have the Bears and Jets also looking at wide receivers. Again, at 11, I think that's where the cap is because you have the Vikings who just took Jordan Addison in the first round of last year's draft. So, yeah, that's how you kind of look at it. But those are the 4 spots. But I think right now, I would say Malik Nabers has the best shot of becoming a Giant at number 6. Chargers would come in second. Obviously, they're 5th, so they had the first crack at Nabers. But again, they could go in a slightly different direction. They could think about offensive line. They could think about, Bowers would be an option. Do they want to reach and get a Dallas Turner, even though they brought back Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa? So they could go in that direction. But I'm really feeling here the Giants as a very good landing spot for Nabers. Again, that Diggs comparison I think is really true. So I think that's the best potential. Again, the Chargers, even though they have Justin Herbert over Daniel Jones, I think this is a better spot because I think Dable wants to throw a little bit more than Greg Roman. I mean, the proof is there when you look at the way these guys operate their offense. Interesting. 2 guys that are former Bills offensive coordinators having different philosophies on different teams. So, again, if you want the volume to rack up for Nabers, and I think the Giants would be more of a passing team as they moved on from Saquon Barkley, open it up more with Dable and Kafka. I think that's what you're looking at with Nabers and his value number 6 overall in the draft. And that's why, again, everyone's high on him as number 11 in Dynasty Keeper Leagues. And I think he would be a wide receiver 2. I think Harrison would be definitely wide receiver 1 immediately. I think Nabers would have wide receiver 2 potential immediately as a rookie to have that impact. Again, we had a big, impactful rookie class in 2023. So I think that can build on this year. So excited to that. I'm also excited to break down Rome Odunze. He was making all kinds of plays for the national runner-up Washington here all season long with Michael Penix Jr. So we'll break him down in our last segment to see what he could do as a rookie and dynasty keeper. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Say goodbye to busted brackets. It's time. We're here. It is the Sweet 16. We're going to have the action tonight, Thursday's games. We're going to get it started. We'll get through the weekend. By the weekend being over, we'll have a Final Four ready for Phoenix and going down to try to play for the national championship. Say goodbye to these buster brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. We got a lot more to go here, so don't worry about what happened in the first and second round. You may be out of your pool, but you're never out of it in FanDuel. Whether you're betting on a big upset, number 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's number 1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. Now you can pick who's going to win it all. You know who's left. Fewer teams to pick from, but now's your chance to do that. If you believe in number 1 seed, go for it here. This is your opportunity. Maybe you want to be a little bit different. away from the field and UConn and hedge your bets a little bit there. But FanDuel lets you do all that stuff. It's great. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets in Phoenix at the Final Four. All right, we're down to our last of our top 3 wide receivers in the 2024 NFL Draft. Again, this won't change, I don't think, before we get in. I don't think you'll have somebody creep up at the last minute. But we will talk about all these other receivers anyway for you on our final show of the week on Friday. Again, we're getting a draft prep. My co-host Michelle will be back next week. I'll be out, so she'll have a lot of different fantasy goodness for you. But wanted to catch you all up on the draft before I head out next week. So let's look at Rome Odunze here. 6'3", 201 pounds. He's actually 22 in the Fantasy Pros consensus. This is actually PPR dynasty keeper rankings there at wide receiver. So 22, not bad for Rome Odunze. I think he projects more. Let's keep it real here. Wide receiver 1 for Harrison in fantasy right away. Nabers wide receiver 2 that we're looking at. Odunze, I'll say conservatively wide receiver 3. Now, he's very fast. He's got a lot of speed to burn, field stretching. He's an outside guy. He can really get downfield. Quentin Johnston, we talked about him. So the Chargers are going to sit on him and just say, okay, we draft receiver in the first round last year with a different regime, or go right back there with Nabers. Odunze is Quentin Johnston, but a lot better. If you look at it, he's clad in purple, but he's a flash down there downfield. Michael Penix Jr. had a massive deep arm. This guy could track down everything. It took him a while to get going against Michigan in the national championship game. Great receiving core that they had with Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk there at Washington. So really good. So good that their offensive guy is now moving over in Seattle to the Seahawks with Mike McDonald. So when we look at that, I mean, yeah, we're excited about what the receivers with the Seahawks can do this season with that trio. But Rome Odunze, hey, we can draw a comparison there right away, right? I think Odunze, he's just the guy that's going to dominate and create big plays. And I think he's a hybrid of all those 3 Seahawks receivers, Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and we mentioned him, Jackson Smith-Njigba, the predecessor to Harrison there at Ohio State. So now looking at Odunze, yeah, I think he's really special. He's a big play waiting to happen, as they say in draft parlance. So when we look at it here, we look at the Chargers and Giants. We talked about them being in play for Nabers. Now there's a chance if the Chargers get Nabers, the Giants can land Odunze, and then we're in business, right? Odunze bounces up to a wide receiver 2 that we feel really confident about as the alpha. But here's the problem with him landing with the Giants, right? You have Jalen Hyatt as a deep threat. Wanda Robinson is a quick threat. So I think when you look at that, I don't know if he fits as well with the Giants. Now, we could be just saying he's just a great talent. We should get him in there. I think Nabers is more of the alpha that the Giants are looking for. So that would not be necessarily the best case scenario. So now you look at the Bears, right? Is this a good scenario anymore, number 9? I'm not sure anymore, right? Because Keenan Allen is there. You've got 2 tight ends here with Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. You got a coordinator, Shane Waldron, who likes, as we mentioned, to run a little bit more 12 personnel, like has the depth at tight end. You also have DJ Moore as an alpha. So the targets are going to be harder to come by if he's a big play threat, right? And we're also having an offense in transition with Caleb Williams, a rookie. Who's he going to latch on to? He probably has immediate chemistry with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. It's going to take time. So I don't think the Bears are going to go for a receiver at 9. In fact, I think they could go defensive there when we look at it. And same thing with the Falcons. They're at 8, 9, and the Titans going offensive line. So that leaves at number 10, the New York Jets. Now, the Jets did actually get former Chargers receiver Mike Williams, but Mike Williams is a wild card. He always gets hurt. He's getting older. He's coming off another major injury. I don't think you can just sit on him as your number 2 and say, oh, we're good, opposite Garrett Wilson. No. I think you have to think about the upsides, and Jets should not miss the opportunity to get Rome Odunze, because what is Odunze? A big field stretcher. What do you have? You have Aaron Rodgers and the big arm, assuming he's fine. Coming back from his Achilles, we already saw him looking good and rehabbing, right? So he should be the quarterback. This is why you have the high ranking, because there's real strong potential Odunze lands with the Jets. And seems like, oh yeah, Garrett Wilson's the number one, but you're not going to get all these rookies landing in the beautiful situations that we're going to get with Marvin Harrison Jr. That's why it's so beautiful, and that's why he's the top wide receiver on the board there. Then some are not even going to be the standout in a group of a crowd, right? I mean, you have to just expect that these receivers are going to add to receivers that are very good. But then keep in mind, you had T. Higgins established in Cincinnati. You added Jamar Chase. What happened? Both of them were elevated. So I'm hoping this happens in this offense with Aaron Rodgers. So that'd be great to see if he can land there, because Garrett Wilson's going to draw the coverage attention. You got Breece Hall to worry about out of the backfield. Tight ends are not that prevalent with the Jets in their offense here at this very moment. So, and they need that target. He's right up there. He's going to be the co-target guy with Wilson and Hall if he goes to the Jets. So Rome Odunze there would be perfect, right? Stretch the field, get some single coverage, take advantage of that. He's the number 2, get some opportunities there. So again, that gives him that wide receiver 3 potential immediately with the Jets. I don't want to go higher than that based on landing spots. Again, I think that would be the same if we went to the Bears because of Moore and Allen being there. So Odunze, I think longer term, you're looking at a guy that can really be special. But yeah, you put Odunze with Wilson, that's going to be exciting for a long time. You put Odunze with DJ Moore, that's going to be fun for a long time. But again, one extra mouth to feed there in Keenan Allen says let's not get Odunze on the Bears there, especially with what they can do in the backfield with DeAndre Swift. So ideal landing spots in summary of the show. Marvin Harrison Jr. Cardinals, I think it's lining up. It's going well. For Malik Nabers, we want the Giants more so than the Chargers. And I think for what we want to get the best out of Rome Odunze in the short term, we want him to land with the Jets and not the Bears. So that could be 3 top 10 wide receivers drafted here, and they're deserving of it. So they do have the skill sets to do that. Odunze had a great combine to make sure he's back in the conversation in the top 10 with Harrison and Nabers. Now, longer term, Harrison is the guy you want. Keeper leagues, you're going to go that high, right, where he's ranked at number 7. I think Nabers is not too far behind. Odunze, you might drop a little bit more, right? I don't know if I would bang the table for him as much for longer-term value right now. It just depends on where he lands. But feeling good about that, where they're ranked right now, perfectly. We're fine. Where you go 7, 11, 22, I think those are right spots for each one. And again, all 3 could have some nice fantasy football impact for you. Wide receiver 1, 2, 3 in that order for Harrison, Nabers, and Odunze in 2024. All right, that's the breakdown of the top 3 wide receivers. We will get to the other wide receivers. We'll do it more in rapid fashion here to see who stands out as someone else that could really emerge. We had so many come through in last year's class, like Tank Dell, that we didn't expect, and there were some that did come through like we expect. Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison when they were on the field. So a lot of things to explore here in this year's class. We could have multiple impact players in the short term and, of course, a lot in the long term. For this edition of Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. See you.